thing is bogus. Something's wrong with this camera. Okay. Hari Om Tat Sat. Om Agyan Mirandasya. Ginanjana Shalakaya. Chakshurumilitam Yena. Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So we're continuing our study of Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 6. Verse number. Sorry, ladies. This distracting. So we're on chapter 6, verse number. The passage we'll be taking today is verse number 24 to 32, hopefully. So Krishna has just described in the last passage, we discussed the two types of samadhi. So we had mentioned earlier that there are 5 mental states that the yoga philosophy, let's say, recognizes. The state of bewilderment, informed by the tamaguna. The state of distraction, krikta, informed by the rajaguna. Then there's a state of intermittent, sometimes focused, sometimes not focused, informed by rajas and sattva. And then the last 2 states of mind are called ekagra and niruddha. So ekagra means one-pointed attention, one-pointed meditation. And that refers to sampragnata samadhi. And that sampragnata samadhi has an object of meditation, that is the focus of the mind. And the idea is that you focus intensely on one object, you block out other vrittis in the mind by that focus on that one object. So this is called ekagra, or sampragnata samadhi. Then there's niruddha. Niruddha is the state where the mind thought fluctuations are completely restrained. And this is also known as ansampragnata samadhi. In that state, there is direct perception of the self, unmediated by the mind, because the mind is in a state of suspension. We gave the example when discussing this earlier. It was just like, well, some of us might remember. Some of us are old enough to remember. Maybe not everyone here, but when I was growing up, there was still television, and you had to have a antenna in order to get the right signal. And sometimes we would really mess with the antenna. I always joke, so you have to like scoot the antenna around the TV box to find the right location so it wouldn't be fuzzy. Sometimes the antenna would be practically leaning off the television. Somehow you figured out how to balance it, and then you walked back very slowly. And then the fuzz would stop, and then you were able to have direct perception of the TV show. I specifically remember doing this with Power Rangers growing up, just a fun fact. So the vrittis of the mind create so much fuzz for the consciousness to perceive itself. So in yoga tradition, if you can restrain all the thought fluctuations, that means all emotion, all thought, all acts of intellection, and so on. Then there can be awareness or perception without it being mediated by a mind. It's like a knowing without thinking. So this is called asapragnata samadhi, or niruddha, the mind state in niruddha, last state. So Krishna described that state in the last verses that we discussed. And he concluded the description by saying, Tavidya dukkha samyogam viyogam yoga sanknitam. That you should know that this is yoga, yoga sanknitam. This is yoga, which is dukkha samyoga viyogam, which causes separation from the union with dukkha. So we have union with dukkha because we are preoccupied with our mind. And the mind is a source of suffering. Isn't it? The mind is certainly a source of suffering. It has desire, it has lamentation, it has bewilderment, it has fear. So these are suffering states. Most of the time, especially nowadays, one is lamenting about the past. Anyone here does that? Lament about the past occasionally. Or one is afraid about the future. or one on the occasion that we're actually thinking about our present situation, we are bewildered, moha. So as long as one is preoccupied with their mental states, they suffer. That is the lot. Some desire comes in the mind, and as soon as that desire comes, from that moment, your suffering begins. Prahlad Maharaj makes this point, isn't it? Of course, we try to say it's a beautiful thing, but actually not so beautiful. You have some desire for some object. Let's say, usually I give the romantic example because it's just clear. And you think, without this person, I cannot exist. I cannot be happy unless I obtain this object. And so from that point, your heart is burning with sensation and anxiety. Then you have to work really, really hard to try to court the person. Usually that used to be a man's thing, to court the woman, but nowadays, gender equality. So it may go either way. So there's that thing comes up. Then you finally get the object, and they're not all that it was, you had hoped it would be. So before you were saying, I cannot live without this person. And then in the end, you were saying, I cannot live with this person. I don't think this is going to work. So as long as one is preoccupied with the mind, this is one's lot, oscillating between fear, lamentation, bewilderment, desire, and the pain that comes thereafter. So there's the experiencer. He is in one ontological category. And then there's the experience, and there's the experienced, ED. Three things, you understand? The experiencer, the experience, and the experienced, the object that is being experienced, right? So the experience is happening inside the mind. That is where experience is taking place. And the experiencer is the Atman, who is just looking at the experience and identifying with it. So as long as one is identified with the world of experience, then you must suffer. That world of experience is completely unpredictable. You go to a nice vegan restaurant. Like when I first came here, I liked Peace Food Cafe. Or is it called cafe? Or just Peace Food? I think it's just called Peace Food. There's one place there called Peace Food. So when I first went there, amazing. They actually feed you, which is not common for vegan restaurants. And it was an amazing place. Then I went again recently, like a month ago or so. And I was like, what is this Peace Food? So the world of experience is very unpredictable. The same thing that gave you pleasure at one moment gives you pain in another moment. It is often seen that those who give us the most happiness can give us the most suffering as well. When it is summertime, you say, I can't wait until fall time or winter. When it's fall, winter, I can't wait until summer. In this way, the mind is going like this, revolving. Vritti, that is vritti. It just keeps on going like this. So as long as the experiencer is identified with the world of experience, he must suffer. So what is yoga? Sangnitam. What is yoga? It is dukkha, samyoga, viyoga, and it's separation from that world of dukkha. That means separation from the mind, basically. Because again, yoga is chitta vritti nirodha. In yoga practice, the idea is to suppress all mental thought, feelings, and so on. And so that the self is just aware of its own nature, which is not part of the world of experience and experienced. And so it's happy and is satisfied in that state. You understand? So now the next set of passages, Krishna will discuss what does it take to get to that state. Obviously, it is not easy to direct consciousness inward. Have you ever tried? As soon as you go to sit for meditation, you think about everything external. In fact, it is only when you try to meditate that you realize how unpeaceful you are. Most of the time, you think, I'm all right. I'm okay. I'm pretty. Then as soon as you go and meditate, immediately you realize what is the actual situation. Not at all peaceful. Thinking horrible things. And so many imprints come inside the mind that disturb. So it's not easy to direct consciousness inward. As soon as you try to direct it inward, then you'll think about someone that you hate. And it draws you back out into the external world. Or you think about some future thing that's happening that day that's causing you a little bit of discomfort, and you're drawn back into the external world. So it's not easy to keep the consciousness focused internally. So question comes, how to attain this state? So in verse 24, this is described. Sanishchayena yoktavyo yoga anirvina chetasa. So Krishna says, saha, so that yoga of samadhi that we're hearing about here, nishchayena yoktavyoha. So that must be practiced with firm determination. In order to move towards that state where consciousness is situated in its own self, that must be practiced with great determination. Yoga anirvina chetasaha. Anirvina chetasaha means devoid of, chetasa means like consciousness or awareness, intelligence. Anirvina, devoid of despair. Because when one practices trying to elevate themselves spiritually, it is easy to despair because it's very difficult. Then you think, what is the use? I'm not making any progress. I'm not getting any improvement. So then you want to give up. Isn't it? You ever had this experience? Maybe some of you have not been practicing very long, but for those of us who've been practicing a little bit longer, this nirvana thing comes up all the time, this despair. I'm useless fellow. I'll never achieve the goal. You get depressed. And then from there, you just say, why even practice? There's no use. And let me just merge into ignorance. After all, ignorance is bliss, right? Until the sattva gun hits. Ignorance is bliss until sattva comes up, and then you realize how horrible your situation is, and then you suffer. So you have to practice with determination, devoid of despair. Nirvana chetasa. Devoid of despair means I will get this perfection of my yoga practice, and this life or the next life, but it will come. With that sort of mentality, you have to practice. Whether it comes this life or next life, I will be fixed up. What is your name? Rina. What chapter are you? We're in chapter 6, and we're verse 24 through 32, hopefully. I'm going to try to cover this whole little passage here. So a story is given once there was one sparrow, her eggs were taken by the ocean. So she threatened the ocean, give me back my eggs or I will drink you dry. So the ocean just ignored her because that is just a funny part. It's not to be taken serious. So she began to try to drink the ocean dry. This story is told by all acharyas. This comes in one Purana, apparently. So you can imagine tiny sparrow tried to drink dry. So one Narada Muni, he came, one sage, said, what is this that you're doing? She said, I will drink the ocean dry. So Narada Muni is like, all right, Baba, how you would your body's like this big. How you would drink the ocean dry? And the sparrow said, either this life or the next life, but that is my determination. Narada Muni was quite moved, so he went to Garuda. Garuda is like the king of all birds, and said, hey, your sister bird is like this, you should go and help her. So Garuda came. He's the carrier of Lord Vishnu, very powerful entity, devotee. So he came towards the ocean. The flapping of his wings was so powerful that the ocean was starting to dry up. It's described in this Purana. So the ocean became very afraid, and then it gave back the eggs. So the acharyas tell this story to describe this anirvana chetasaha point. That one should be devoid of despair, thinking that by the mercy of God, ultimately I will achieve the goal of samadhi, which is the context here. Either I will achieve it this life or the next life, but I will by the mercy of God. It's interesting because also in Patanjali Yoga Sutra, if you study it, all the yamas and niyamas, if practiced to perfection, they award some siddhi, some perfection. For example, it says if you practice brahmacharya perfectly, which is one of the niyamas, then you will develop the power that whatever you speak will become true. If you practice brahmacharya. So in this way, they give siddhis for all the different yamas and niyamas. And one of the niyamas is Ishwar Pranidhana, which means worship of Bhagavan. And it says by worshiping Ishwar or God, that he will bestow upon that worshiper samadhi. So it applies here. That one has to think like this, that of course not by my own power alone, but by the power of God, I can also attain the goal. So that's quite a determination to have. Especially if someone like Narada Muni comes along and like discourages you. Say, Aribo, what are you doing? Some great personality says like that, you can get bewildered. But no, I will achieve the goal. So this determination is required, otherwise you will not be able to make progress in your spiritual life. Special yoga practice, it takes a long time to become perfected. Of course, you can become perfected in the asana practice, but to get this sort of perfection, the perfection of your inner life or the growth of your inner life, that takes a long time. A lot of determination required. So sankalpa prabhavan kamans taktva sarvam asheshitaha manasa vendriya grama viniyamya samantataha shanaya shana uparame buddhya driti grihitaya atma samana krutva na kinchan apichintaya. So these two verses together, 24, 25. So in summary, the beginning of the path and the conclusion of the path are summarized by Krishna in these two verses. So in the beginning, sankalpa prabhavan kamas taktva sarvan asheshataha. This means that one should give up all objects of determination. Sankalpa prabhavan kaman means the sankalpa prabhavan kama, the sankalpas, the determination to enjoy material objects. All of us have some sankalpa, isn't it? That's not spiritual sankalpa. We have material sankalpa, isn't it? We have material sankalpa. Material sankalpa is there. Where is that coming from? Prabhavan kama, born of kama. Born of the kama means desire, lust. So taktva, that should be given up. Sarvan asheshataha, along with all the imprints of desires. So that is a little bit more challenging. You can give up objects are a little bit easier to give up, like a gross object like this, but the imprint of the object stays in the mind. Just like sometimes when I was living in the monastery, we used to joke like this: "Don't look twice." And you ever hear the statement? Don't look twice. If some person is there, they're attractive, so you kind of look. But we were told, don't look twice, and then it's all right. Now that you're like, dang, yo, to say something, crazy. So many times we don't look twice, but this meant my later realization about this is that don't look twice, once with the eyes and then again with the mind. You look and then. This is called the imprint of the object. So first the object is there, but then it leaves imprint in the mind. So Krishna is saying that should also be given up. Sankalpa prabhavan kamans taktva, one should give up the object of senses, and also their impression should be given up. Manasa eva indriya grama viniyamya samantataha. And from all sides, one should control the senses by the mind. Don't allow the senses to just do whatever it wants, whenever it wants, however it wants. That's what most people say, that I do what I want, when I want, how I want. That is like, bro, but that's not you. Those are your senses. Otherwise, you're doing so many foolish things also that cause problem for you. So if you were in control, why would you do that? Because you're not in control. So this is the beginning of the path. One should give up objects, yoga path. So remember, yoga is renunciation from the world. So that's why it's described this way. Giving up objects, giving up those imprints of objects, controlling the senses on all sides by the mind. Then shanaya. If you do like this with great determination, then how fast will you progress? Shanaya, gradually. Now this is the age where we want an app for success. Everyone looks for some app to be successful, and they want immediate success. Everything should be instant. Instagram, there should be instant noodles. Instagram, I used to like those. There should be instant everything. We want it right now. But here, if you're practice like this with great determination, gradually. Shanai uparame buddhya driti grihitaya. Gradually, with intelligence informed by conviction. Our Acharya said this means dharana. So that means in the beginning of your meditation practice, it's very much intellectually informed. You just know that this is good for you. You're using the intelligence to study the mind. Then Atma Sanstha Manakritva, then fixing the mind in the self. This is called dhyana. That's the second stage, seventh stage of the Ashtanga practice. The mind is just fixed in itself by meditation. Less support of the intelligence is required at that time. And then Upadamed. Upadamed means complete samadhi, the last stage. So gradually you'll be able to fix yourself in samadhi in this way. Not kinchin apichintaya, and you should think of nothing else. Because in that state, you don't think of anything else. You're just situated in the self. So the yoga system is like this. So what happens sometimes the mind goes towards other things. Even when you're like this is actually very hard to even conceive at our present state, perhaps. But even if you're like this, the mind oscillates. So then Krishna mentions about this importance of pratyahara. So pratyahara again is the fifth anga of the Ashtanga process, 8-limb process. Pratyahara means when the senses are going out, then you should draw them in. That is called pratyahara. The word pratyahara actually means to restrain eating. Ahara means to eat. So your senses are always eating their objects. Your eyes eat forms. The ears eat sound. The nose eats smelling, etc. So pratyahara means to fast or to restrict eating. So yato nishchalati manash tanchalam astiram. So when the mind becomes agitated due to its flickering and unsteady nature, and the mind's nature is to move, cannot stay in one spot for 5 seconds also. If I say, think of this one thing for 5 seconds, we'll start sweating. Suppose they had a machine that could tell what all your thoughts were, that would be quite scary. Thank God they don't have something like that yet. They're probably working and figuring something out. But imagine they say, and you have to think of this one thing for 5 seconds or we'll kill you. It'll be very hard to think of one thing for 5 seconds. That is how unsteady the mind is. So yato nishchalati, manas chanchanam astiram. Whenever the mind becomes agitated due to its flickering and unsteady nature and wanders here and there, tatas tato niyam yaitat atma neva vashanayat. Then you should bring it back under the control of the self. So if the mind wanders 100 times, then you should bring it back 100 times. The 101 didn't happen yet. Then after you reach 100, 101, it will again go. Then you bring it back that extra time. So in that way, you have to practice in the yoga system. Keep bringing it back. That is actually the determination to bring your mind back to your object of meditation. Usually when we chant japa, at least here, I don't know about these other practitioners of meditation. I noticed with devotees chanting japa, if you're watching, this is not a good practice, by the way. But sometimes you find fault with the other chanters so that you can feel better about your own chanting. And sometimes you see Hare Krishna, and you can see where someone's mind goes. And it's like Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. You're like, bro, bring it back. You're like, don't let it go off like that. So if it's wandering, you have to bring it back under the control of the self. Bring it back to your object of meditation. That is a determination. If you do like that, prashanta manasam he nam yogi nam sukam uttama upaiti shanta rajasam brahma bhutam akalmasham. If you shall do like that, then prashanta manasam he nam. By that determination, the mind will become peaceful. Eventually, you'll be able to situate it back into the meditation. Yogi nam sukam uttama, and you'll experience sukam uttamam. That means the greatest happiness. Because the happiness of the self is greater than anything material. Basically because consciousness is alive and matter is dead. So there's nothing dead that can bring happiness to the self. In order for something to bring happiness to the self, it has to be conscious. Nothing dead can bring happiness. Anything dead brings disturbance, actually. So the body actually brings disturbance, isn't it? Asana pikleshada asideha. The body is the giver of misery. And in this, it is very consistent. Asana pikleshada asideha. So nothing in the world of death can bring happiness. So only consciousness can do that. So sukam uttama, the greatest happiness, is because the consciousness is situated in its own self. Upaiti shantan rajasam brahma bhuta akalmasham. Shanta Rajasam, his passions are pacified. Because you're situated in the self, just like Krishna says earlier in chapter 2, verse 59. Vishayavani vartante niraharasya dehina rasa rajana supyasya parandristana vartite. So he says one may practice restraint from the sense objects. Vishayavani vartante niraharasya, by principles or regulations of fasting. But inside you thinking about that sense object, isn't it? Just like some of our friends recently have catched up on season 7 of Game of Thrones because season 8 is about to come out, and so they need a refresher because it's been like a year and a half or something. So they need a little refresher, so they're catching up on the Games of Thrones. Wait, I forgot why I was making that point. They're catching up with the game. Wait, Shantan, their passions are pacified. What was I saying before that? Just before that? Yes, Vishavani Vartante Virahasati. So you may practice restraint. So I'm practicing restraint. I'm not gonna watch season 7. I'm not gonna watch season 8 also. I'm telling myself that. What is this Game of Thrones? It is matter. How this part of the world of death. What is this nonsense? But inside, the sweat is coming, you know. Of course, I'm not so attached to Game of Thrones, but give me an example. You may restrain yourself from doing, but one is thinking about the object. Or sometimes it happens, the breakup is there with someone you thought you loved and turned out to be something else in conclusion. And then you say, I'll not think of that person again, only thinking about that person. Rasa Varjam, because the desire is inside. But for one who is seeing the parang, for one who is experiencing the transcendence, then that desire itself is also extinguished. So, like sadhakas, we are practitioners. So we also practice rules and regulations. You know, we were hearing this morning about the regular principles: no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, no illicit sex. You know, when I first read about these principles, the very first time I read about these principles, and Science of Self-Realization, that was my first book. And I read about the no gambling. Who gambles anyway? No meat eating. All right, you know, I mean, I do like Buffalo Joe's, but I think I could give it up. That was one place I was attached to. And then no intoxication. I never drank it. On my 18th birthday, I tried one time marijuana just to get an experience. And alcohol. I wanted to have a hangover so I could fit in with my friends a little bit more effectively. I was quite disappointed when it didn't happen. So then I was cool with. Then it said no illicit sex, and I was like, you know, that math lady me. So as sadhakas, we may practice restraint from these things, but the mind is thinking all the time, thinking. But if you're experiencing the transcendence, that desire is also extinguished. So here the same thing is being indicated in these verses. The passions are pacified by experience. Brahmabhuta akalmasham. Brahmabhuta means to realize one's own self. By realization of one's own self, akalmasham. Being free from all sinful reactions. So the same state is indicated here. So in 3 verses, Krishna mentions the awareness of such a realized person. Such a person is called Jivan Mukta. So Jivan Mukta literally means the living liberated. That means those souls who are in their bodies, but they're liberated from bodily identification. They're called as Jivan Mukta. So that is the difference between us, what we call as a self-realized person, and ordinary consciousness. We are in the body and we identify with these bodies, yes? But they're in the body, they do not identify. It's an extraordinary state of awareness. So in verse 27, which we just discussed, 28, 29, 30 also, their Jiva Mukta is described a little bit more elaborately. Krishna says in verse 28 here, Yujan evam sadatmanam yogi vikatakal masha sukena brahma samsparsham antyantam sukam ashnute. So having thus controlled his mind by this practice of Ashtanga Yoga, the yogi who is Vikata Kalmasha, he is free from all tincture. Sukhena Brahma Samsparshan. He experiences the happiness that comes from touching the transcendence. Brahma, the word Samsparshan means to touch. So Samsparshan means to completely touch. Sparshan means to touch. The happiness that comes from touching the transcendence. Antyantam Sukham Ashnute. It is an extreme happiness, unlimited or imperishable happiness. So, example of this type of person, I always give this example because I like it a lot, is when you're experiencing something like this, it is so wonderful that there's nothing that is superior to it. And there's no suffering in this world more strong than that happiness that can cause you to want to separate yourself from it. So examples given, one saintly person, Haridas Thakur. He was chanter of Hare Krishna also, but he was born as a Muslim. So in Islam, apostasy has you have death as the punishment for apostasy. If you leave the religion, it's in the Quran that you get killed. So someone told on Haridas Thakur, and so he was brought before the Nawab Hussain, the ruler at the time. And they said, "Why are you chanting this Hare Krishna? You don't chant. You stop this chanting and take up Muslim religion, then we'll not kill you, we'll not beat you." Haridas Thakur said, No, I'll chant Hare Krishna. There was nice discussion that went on, but he refused to give up. So why? Someone threatened you that will kill you if you chant this Hare Krishna. What would you do? Huh? You would die.
No, I'm just saying, like, you continue.
Wow, brave soul. I always thought when I first heard this story, I'll just stop. I said, yeah, no problem. Like, what's the big deal? I'll stop. And then when I leave the court, I'll just continue to chant. Like, what's the big deal? But Haridas, isn't it? Mm-hmm. That seems reasonable, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to be dramatic. Look, I'll stop. Like, what's the big deal? Yeah, no problem. I'll stop chanting, And then when I get back home, take that, Nual, he says, I do what I want. But Haridas Thakur, he was experiencing so much bliss from the chanting that he said, no, I can't. He said, it's not that I don't want to stop. I can't stop. The happens is it's all consuming. It's like it's taking over my being. There's no question of stopping. Even if you cut my body into pieces, I'll still be chanting Hare Krishna. So then I tried to beat him to death. Very horrible way. Still, he was chanting Hare Krishna, and while he was getting beat, he was just like, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. He was in ecstasy. So this is a state of jima. You have to be really detached from your body to take that's like one of those don't try that at home, folks, sort of things. Another story with Haridas Thakur, I have to end here because my time is up. Another story in this regard, very nice story also. Once he was in the ecstasy of chanting Hare Krishna, and so many big crowds started to form around Haridas Thakur because he was in so much bliss. And when you see a person who's actually happy, it is very attractive. Even if they're on the outside, you may say physically not very attractive, but if they're genuinely happy, they really attract your heart. Like, what's this person got that we don't have? Many times when people would see the devotees in the old days chanting Hare Krishna for no reason at all, singing and dancing in the street. Usually you have to be drunk to do something like that. So they see devotees singing and dancing in the street, they would wonder, what type of marijuana y'all using? They'd be curious. You must be smoking something. I personally been asked that question on Sankirtan on a couple of occasions. Like, no one just chants and dances in the street. What you smoking? So Haridas Thakur was in ecstasy. So a big crowd was gathering around. He was just singing, just without any inhibition, just singing. This is like hashtag life aspiration. There's a verse from the Bhagavatam that says about the sadhana of a bhakta. So we're called bhakti yogis. So we practice bhakti yoga. And the practice of bhakti yoga is described in the Bhagavatam, Gayam vilajo vicharet asangaha, that the devotee, the bhakta, without attachment, wanders the world, singing the glories of his Lord without inhibition. And when I read that, I was like, man, that's like life's goal right there. You know, we could just one. I kind of imagine myself like going to Whole Foods. I'm like pushing the cart, and then all of a sudden, Hari Krishna. Everyone's- no. I have inhibitions because I'm not on the platform, but this is a goal. So Haridas Thakur is just singing like that. It's very attractive. Everyone came to see him. So one Brahmana is there. Brahmanas are socially in superior position. So he was wondering, this guy is a Malecha. He's an untouchable person. How is he getting so much attention that is meant for the Brahmin community? It's meant for me. So he became envious. So he started imitating Haridas Thakur. So he also started. Everyone was getting confused. Oh, another one has come. Two. Yeah, another one is there. So one person felt spontaneously within himself that this guy is a phony. So he took one stick and he went over and he started beating. He started beating the Brahmana. And the Brahmana, he came out of his ecstasy real fast and he started running because the guy was just beating him. Like, in India, also, you see this all the time in our temples where people will make a loud sound, "Ah!" and they'll collapse to the floor. I've seen it in Vrindavan so many times. So they make loud sounds so everyone looks to see what's going there on the floor, and they're like rolling on the ground and in ecstasy. But then the chokidar, the security guard, he walks over with a stick, and they come out of ecstasy real fast. They're like, "No, I'm not in ecstasy. Let me get up." And they're usually escorted out of the temple. It happens many times in India, actually. During Prabhupada's time, also in Mayapur, there was a story where a man came and he was like this. So devotees are used to hearing these stories like Haridas Thakur. So they didn't know what to think. They're in the holy place. This looks like a holy person. Maybe he's in ecstasy. So he was rolling on the ground singing, and they went to Prabhupada and they said, "Prabhupada, what should we do?" He said, pick him up and throw him out." So they went to go and lift him, and then he just stood up and himself walked away. So my point to say all this is that it's not imitation. You have to be they're not even aware of the body. They're just lost in it. They're really kind of like lost in the inner world. Just like we're lost in the outer world, looking around, bewildered. Just like sometimes I hear the voice say, "I like to people watch." I'm like, people watch? That's very dangerous. Or people watch is looking bewildered. Or sometimes our devotees, they go for singing kirtan outside and they're standing in one spot, but a whole time like this. It's summertime. And sometimes you see devotees doing like, the neck kind of like does a 360. So it's not. So we are lost in the outer world of things and objects and people, and these souls, they're lost in the inner world of ecstasy, and therefore, even if something is happening to the body externally, it doesn't cause any disturbance to them. Such is the extraordinary state. So this is the encouragement of Bhagavad-Gita, that become lost in this inner world. Now you are lost in this outer world, and this outer world is a place of dukkha. So you get lost in this inner world, and that inner world is a place of happiness, bliss. So those are the two broad options. So this is the encouragement. So I'll stop there. Are there any questions? I not give the questionnaire. I normally give questionnaires, but I didn't finish the passage because it's a really long passage. It's like 10 verses. It's hard to finish all of them. So on Wednesday, we'll finish this passage, and then I'll give the questionnaire. So before we end, are there any questions or comments? Yes.
Well, just a comment, because I think maybe some people don't know the conclusion that, Haridas, for example, he was savagely, as you said, beaten in 22 marketplaces. A person ordinarily would have died in the first marketplace or the second for sure. And he was completely unharmed.
No.
So that's a significant thing, because when you attain that condition, it comes with perks. Like, you're under the complete scrutiny of and mercy of the Supreme Lord. And if he doesn't wish you to leave your body, they can beat you crazy and you're not going to leave your body.
Yes, the more, well, I wouldn't say the more, but another extraordinary feature and perhaps more relatable aspect of this pastime is that after the executioners finished beating him. So he was alive and well. So they were like all winded and tired, and then Haridasa, Hare Krishna. So they said, if we do not kill you, then this Nuwa will kill us. And so Haridas Thakur, he said, oh, we don't want that to happen. So he went into samadhi, it says. He just went into like a deep meditation, and it looked like he left his body. Because sometimes the state of samadhi is like that. You cannot tell if there are any external symptoms of life. And so they looked like he had left his body. So in that way, to save the lives of these executioners, he did like that for them. So they said, should we bury him? They said, no, because he's lived like a Hindu. He should get a Hindu burial. And they threw him in the Ganga. Then his body, went flowing down one of the tributaries of the Ganges. Then he came out, and then he walked back to the Nuwab and said, Hare Krishna. So this story is so far out. He said, Hare Krishna. So they thought he was dead. So this part of the story makes me laugh every time. So then the Nuwab said, now we know you are a saintly person. Huh? Because that was the test. I was like, there are no easier tests. Sometimes I think some Christians are fond of saying that you have to carry the cross. You want to imitate Jesus, then you should also carry the cross. So the Nawab said, we were just testing to see if you were a saintly person. I was like, I think I definitely won't pass that test, so I'm not even trying to imitate. And Haridas Thakur, this is the part I want to say is kind of extraordinary, had no animosity toward them. Can you imagine someone try to beat you? Okay, 22 is just, not even 22. They just try to beat you or even slap you one time in public. And everyone started laughing at you. It was like very humiliating. Then you can forgive them, or like no beef, like yeah, no problem. All right, really nice to see you. Then you can say like that. This is how extraordinary free these people are. I always have to make this point that freedom means this: that someone does something very to harm you also, and you have the freedom to not be disturbed. If someone, I always say like this, if someone even offers me a feedback in a presentation that I think I did really well in, I'm just like, man, that guy is full of envy. Of course, externally, I'm like, thank you, Perry. But internally, I'm like, man, full of envy, dude. Because I don't have that freedom to not feel that way. But when you're having this level of awareness, you're in a state of complete freedom. Then no one can bind you, actually. Haridas Thakur was also arrested. They said, come with us. This is before he was beaten in 22 marketplaces. They said, come with us, you're going to jail. Why am I going to jail? Because you're chanting Hare Krishna. He's like, okay. No disturbance. No, can you imagine someone came in here and said, you're all under arrest for chanting Hare Krishna? And you're like, okay, cool. And you just hope, because there's no question of bondage for such people. And everyone here who's walking the city, they think they are free, but they're completely bound by their senses and by their mind. They don't even have the freedom to forgive people who actually love them. But if, maybe said something they don't like or something like that, they don't even have that much freedom to forgive people that actually love them. But these people are so free that they say, we're going to arrest you unfairly for chanting Hare Krishna. Okay. If you want, otherwise I'll just walk with you to the jail. These stories that's why it's so powerful to hear about saintly people. Now people are wasting so much time hearing about Ariana Grande and what she's doing, these nonsense people. Full of, their lives are completely full of bad character and rascaldom. I'm thinking of Ariana Grande for a very particular reason, because anyway, I won't share. It's too abominable to share in this area, actually. People are hearing the stories about them. No, you hear about these saintly people like Haridas Thakur. And then you want to be like them. They're very powerful. Yes.
I You made me think of Narayana Muni, who goes through the entire universe.
Yeah.
Entire Krishna.
Yes.
Yeah, you just reminded me of that.
Yes. He's very free. He can just fly here and there. That's a nice perk. Okay. One other comment or reflection. I always like to take one reflection. At least someone can share something. Fernando, you want to share something? You took some note, or Kishore?
Well, I was just looking at these two verses, 26 and 27. 26 is more like practical. It's like, kind of a practical guide. Whereas 27, it then goes to perfection. And I was kind of like, well, that's kind of a big jump from, of course, in the previous verse, he says step by step, you want to become completely.
Yes.
And then he explains what that transfers. And so, I guess sometimes it's just interesting to put it in perspective and thinking about how, because it tends to go about our day kind of autopilot,
Unfortunately.
and just reflecting on what the goal actually is, and thinking again, where am I on that stress from here to there, and what is my level of absorption on a daily level.
Nice point. Yeah, if we spend more time thinking about the goal, then we wouldn't have time to get caught up in the pettiness of existence in this world, which we tend to do because we don't think about the goal.
I was reading a quote here about how we are afraid of failure and afraid of being successful in spiritual life because we don't know what it's going to be like. We don't know what it's like. Because in the intermediate stage, you feel like you have some level of control. Like I'm making this happen. I'm being spiritual. I'm developing my love for God, or however we may be thinking about it. But once you get to the pure platform, actually, you start to become controlled by that spiritual revelations and emotions.
That's concerning.
That can be, it can be scary if you don't know what it is,
Or even if you know what it is, it could be scary.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Knowing about it is important.
I remember reading about that you can become a devotee like Krishna's other devotees. So let me read about these devotees' lives in the Bhagavad-Gita. And you see so many, their lives are full of like so much suffering. And then you'll hear the purport that Krishna arranged it. And like, I'm supposed to, then you go to the next story, full of suffering. And it was all Krishna's arrangement, Krishna's mercy. And I remember feeling that very confronted by that, like, I had a different concept of mercy in my head. Oh no, this is not really fitting. But then when you start to understand more about their inner world, then you understand, wow, all of this is actually just bliss. Even all of it is just bliss for them. And we're looking at their story from our consciousness and getting bewildered. But these stories are inviting us they're giving us access to another world of consciousness and asking us to aspire for that. And it's encouraging so that in any condition you can be blissful. All right, thank you all very much. We'll finish the passage on Wednesday and continue our Gita study. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Later online.